If there's one thing I love a bit more than creating stuff, it's got to be fixing things. What a great feeling taking something old, broken, and unloved and bringing it back to life. Minecraft is a game about creation, but it is also a game of destruction, and that ugly side rears its head more often than you'd hope. Wouldn't it be nice if we could all just get along, support one another, and leave places better than we found them? Unfortunately, our little story doesn't start quite so peachy. I found myself on a server. PvP was enabled, protections were limited, and griefing was tolerated. It doesn't take much to guess what kind of player you might expect to find in a place like this. The good news was I'd found somewhere to live. Well, I'd found somewhere to stay for the night. Alright, I'll live with you. I was squatting in the putrid basement of a building that probably should have collapsed a few decades ago. But I was dry, I was happy, I was simply Sark, and I was going to restore this grief-dog ruin back to its former glory. Oh, and subscribe if you like Wheezy. Before we get into things, we need to have a bit of the lay of the land and see what kind of project we have ahead of us. I don't know when this place was built, I don't know who made it, and I don't even know exactly what this was originally supposed to be. The build seems to be partially incomplete, somewhat amateurishly planned out, and most notably has been griefed and vandalised at some point in time. This place is in a sorry state, and it might not even be fair to say it's seen much better days. Most of us would just walk past this sort of unimpressive build, but we're going to stick around and show it some long overdue love. To get us off to a good start, we'll need to gather a healthy supply of resources, and what better place to procure them than the very dystopian world we find ourselves roaming? As I'm sure you'll find quite unsurprising, it's not hard to find countless abandoned and derelict structures all over the landscape. Why not kill two birds with one stone, tidy up these eyesores, and harvest their materials to funnel back into our own project? I set up some scaffolding for safety, and we were ready to get started. The first thing we're going to do is we need to update this staircase. It's the first thing you see, or at least touch, and I think it should leave more of an impression. We're going to get rid of that cobblestone and replace it with spruce, pretty much because I just like spruce, and I think it'll contrast nicely with the stone. I then want to fortify the staircase, make it more formidable. We're going to create this kind of tiered leveling system, but you might be thinking it's a little rectangular, and I agree, so we're going to chisel some of it off to give a rougher, more worn out appearance. But I didn't want to go overboard, I want to retain those flat surfaces as much as possible. Meanwhile, in the grounds we have this entrance gate. If the staircase is the entrance to the building, this is the entrance to the plot itself. Unfortunately, it's pretty weedy and nondescript. A good gate or fence should create a sense of inside and outside, but I don't think this does that at all. We need to amp things up just a little bit. Gatehouses are a great way to create a divide. They're basically just small buildings that act, as the name implies, as a gateway between outside and inside. We're going for a beefier look, so we're going to create this node-based system for the fence. These are good for making it look strong, but it's also good if your fence needs to go up and down inclines. The nodes act as a medium between the varying levels. If you just went for a continuous fence, it looks pretty janky and unsatisfying. As for the gatehouse itself, we just went for a simple little cobblestone arch with a spruce roof and some lanterns to make it a bit cozier. I can only speculate, but I'm going to imagine the original creator wanted this build to be fairly open. Or maybe they just couldn't figure out how to make windows. Either way, I'm going to destroy this glass segment and try something else, but I'd like to retain that airy open idea going forward. Instead of sealed windows, we're going to go for a very breezy open alternative. I never know what these are called. Ramparts, buttresses, I don't know, but they're basically windows with outcroppings. These look really good, but they're also going to help start break down that flat square shape the original building has. We're going to keep the front door wide open too for that casual airy vibe, but I'm going to line it with trapdoors for a bit of interest. Nothing too junky though. So I don't know about you, but this pathway is pretty unfortunate. And that's a shame because roads and pathways are probably one of the easiest, cheapest and best ways of defining space. And they're really not too hard. Now this path is very straight and direct, like you're not allowed to take a detour, just go straight to your destination and do not ask questions. Straight symmetric roads can totally work. But because we're going for something more casual, I don't think it'd do this space any favours. Your go-to block might be path blocks, and these are good for, again, straight, wide lines, but they're terrible for anything organic and scattered because their shading is pretty off. For organics, just meander to your destination. It doesn't have to be 100% direct. You can veer off here and there. Remember to round curves and angles, use varying thicknesses, and scatter blocks for better blending. Also, remember where people have been walking. Higher footfall means more erosion. I actually even went as far as severing the path here to indicate that, but don't go nuts, too much of any technique can make it lose its purpose. We arrive at the roof. You've probably noticed that this is one of the bigger casualties of the griefing event. The entire thing is just gone. From the looks of the pattern, I'd say someone had a little flint and steel spree and let the game take it from there. I decided to just scrap the roof completely. From the remnants, the design didn't look that great to begin with. We're also going to do away the birch, largely because I just hate birch. But I also don't think it works well for roofs in general, even in the best of times. Instead, we'll go for a combo of spruce planks and stripped dark oak. I find dark oak matches better than stripped spruce because it doesn't have that weird green tinge to it. We went for a fairly sporadic design, but roofs are tricky, so you need to mix things up frequently in case the pattern becomes monotonous, and I think I did a decent job for its size. What kind of tipped the scale for me when deciding to pick this build or not was these things. I don't actually know what they're supposed to be. Like, maybe it was an outer wall that was just never completed, or maybe an aqueduct. I don't know, but I thought they were an interesting feature. I made the executive decision that they were going to be archers. So there's actually a lot of negative space in this area, and that's a big part of why it looks so empty. The new pathway helps a little bit, but we need to add more features to fill the area even more, and I thought these archers would be a good way to do it. Currently, they're a bit too cuboid in nature, so I decided to erode and chisel them a little. A mixture of stairs and slabs helps mellow the shapes out a lot, and I mixed in some andesite too to throw off that continuous texture they'd have otherwise. I even crumbled part of this arch to give it extra age. I then installed even more arches around the area to fill the aforementioned blank space. This one even intersects the pathway to make them a bit more interactive. If we come back inside, you'll see that the interior was also not spared when the Fire Nation decided to attack. From what's left, we can see there was probably a donut-shaped ring here alongside a banister rail and a ladder down to the lower level. So I'm pretty anti-birch, but we'll try and keep that theme alive in here at least. I wanted to redo the ring idea, but with a slightly different approach. We're going to create a suspended platform that is held up by chains. I didn't want to use birch logs because they're horrendous, but I also didn't like birch planks because they're overly processed. Stripped birch is a good compromise. It's a little processed, but it's earthier and more organic than planks. To make things a little scary, we're going to leave a 3-block gap between the wall and the platform. I was looking for a good chain design and settled with this. We use a grindstone to hook the platform to the wall and 2 fence gates to create a gravity effect with a chain. Fence gates attached to wall blocks render slightly lower than regular fence gates, so you get this nice little subtle effect. Even though we're trying to restore this build, it's undeniable we've also taken charge of things. As such, it no longer makes sense to adorn the sigils of the former occupants. I took the banners outside and washed away the markings to replace them with something better. To welcome in the new era of prosperity, I adorned the building with these new sigils inside and out. Praise me, long shall I reign. On a slightly less concrete note, we also need to fix these walls a little bit more. I created these ledges and went for some circular open windows to stick to the earlier area idea. I wanted to create this sort of slalom effect where if you wanted to walk through each window, you'd need to snake inside and out. I built these dividing support pillars inside and some ledges outside, all made out of spruce. To help with lighting, I made these little rope lanterns attached to the ceiling and offset the heights for a bit of variety. Lecterns are actually a really great block to add some more interest and detailing for a socket. You may have noticed this little bit of fencing over here. Obviously, I can't say for sure, but this must have been an animal pen at some point. Only problem is, there are no animals, and there were definitely no animals when I got here either. This may look like an innocent little scene, but it could very well have bared witness to a great tragedy. We're not going to overcomplicate things, but I'd like to make this pen a little fancier, and make it match the surroundings a bit better too. I've tried to make something of a Celtic theme here with these big spiralling rune-like stone formations breaking up the regular fencing. The only thing that was missing was the livestock, so I went out and found some free sheep and made them not so free anymore. I also dyed them an appropriate blue and yellow to better match our new colours. Around the back of the building there's actually a fairly dismal little patch of farmland. Perhaps it was once productive, but it's now barren of any crops and seems to have been plundered and trampled. This looks like it was a pretty small scale setup, so I decided to stick with that. I thought a peaceful little garden would be appropriate, nothing massive, just a modest source of food. I made microplots of various crops and a battered old fence along with some coarse dirt for extra age. For decoration, I made these stylish vases with glazed terracotta, flower pots, and a sea pickle. I think they look surprisingly good. I also made these planters to line the wall. I repeated this idea at the front of the property on those tiered steps we created earlier. On the building's left side, there's a bit of a problem. The wall has been blown out. Now, you might think, well, just fix it. But I think we'd be losing something if we just built something new here. This damage is now part of the building's history and should be remembered. So instead of erasing this scar, we're going to only partially repair it so that we can remember what took place. So I installed some matching support pillars from the opposite wall, but we're going to leave this wall open to the elements. Structurally, we're going to add these oak beams to fill in the void that's been left in the wall. This all has consequences. Down in the basement. This part of the project was actually very empty and incomplete, so I don't really have much to go on. The only thing I can gather is this might have been a storage room because of the few leftover chests, but the fire from above could very well have reached these lower levels and completely wiped everything out. Because of that, I kind of had to make my own decision on what should go here. I like the idea of nature taking over, so went along with the line of thought that the destroyed wall would have let the elements in and nature has seeped down into the foundations. I thought a work-in-progress style camp could be a fun idea, so I built some utilities like furnaces and also added some barrels to stay in line with the potential storage room origin. The birch ladder had to go, so I replaced it with a stripped dark oak pillar and also opted for a spiral staircase, because I figured the profile was too spindly and feeble when you just had that skinny little pole. If you've been paying attention, you'll see that I haven't actually finished the roof. This is intentional because using that same philosophy of the ruined wall, I wanted to maintain some of the damage and the roof was heavily affected. What I wanted to do was raise the building's profile and leave the interior open to the heavens. This sticks with the lore, is gonna look cool, and also has the big benefit of flooding the inside with lots of light, which is very handy, especially down in the dark basement. I've created these bits of clawed rubble where the supposed ceiling would have been, and I also added these spruce beams to enhance the effect. I don't know about you, but I thought a giant banner would be appropriate too. Before we get to the completed showcase, I want to make a few final adjustments. But in the meantime, you can actually help me out. If you enjoy this kind of video and would like to see more, I'm going to need some more projects to work on. So if you have any builds, bases, or worlds of your own that you reckon could do with a makeover, do let me know. Hit me up on Twitter @SimplySark, post a few screenshots of the world, and if I see something that'd make a cool project, you might see it featured in the future. But anyway, let's take a few before and after shots of this project to see how the build has changed. Now, I don't claim to be the best build around, but I'm pretty happy with how things turned out. It was surprisingly quite enjoyable, sort of indirectly collaborating with someone else, considering decisions they made, contributing your own ideas, and getting this weird mix you probably wouldn't have come up with just by yourself. I hope you enjoyed this as much as I did, guys. It was fun. But that's pretty much it. Project complete. I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts. But guys, like I said, thanks very much for watching. I've been your one and only Simply Sark, and I will catch you in the next one.